In this video, I wanted to share a almost silent and very deadly killer to cycling performance for many recreational and amateur road cyclists around the world. So let's get into it. Which brings us to opportunity number 3. A fresh physical state means you can start to train proper hard. Ever heard of something called overtraining syndrome? Trust me, this is more common than you think. And the symptoms, they don't need to be extreme. They can be mild and they can be having a huge impact on your cycling performance. Side effects of overtraining syndrome include moody or irritable, poor sleep, irregular heart rate, lack of energy or feeling washed out, loss of enthusiasm, mild muscle or joint soreness, and reduced training intensity and performance. Now, all those side effects need to be respected. They're very important. But that last one there, I know it tends to resonate with a lot of people. And look, I could give you many stories about members of the RCA that I have worked with that have been in one, two, or many of these side effects from overtraining syndrome. But the one that comes to mind I'm going to share with you now is from a member called Glenn. And Glenn didn't really like zone 2 riding. He was a tough guy, liked to push it a lot. So he was doing high intensity training and all his zone 2 rides, instead of being zone 2, ended up being zone 3 or even what we call sub-threshold, which is just below your functional threshold power or your FTP. As a result, all his training rides were essentially hard. He was riding too hard too often. As a result, Glenn gradually became fatigued, with a major sign for him being he couldn't properly hold any efforts above zone 4, which is your functional threshold power zone. For example, zone 5, your VO2 max zone, or your aerobic ceiling, which sits above zone 4 obviously, when you're conditioned, you should be able to hold this zone for around about 5 minutes. Glenn, who should have been conditioned, he couldn't hold this intensity for 1 minute. He also started to experience constant soreness and a heart rate that drifted rapidly during most longer rides. Thus, because of these side effects from overtraining, Glenn could no longer train effectively because he could no longer train proper hard. He was in a fatigued state, and as a result, his performance started to decline. And this was a real wake-up call for him. And after having a couple of weeks off and freshening up and getting back into it, he now respects zone 2 and zone 1 training. So I don't feel there's a need in this section to discuss why you should train proper hard and how to go about it, because I feel like after the first 2 sections, you should be starting to get the picture. What's very important though, is when you train, you will have hard sessions, whether it's a hard or fast local bunch ride, a hill repeat session, or something along those lines. If you're fresh for those sessions, you can go harder. And if you can go harder, you will achieve a greater level of physical stress, which in turn will lead to a greater level of fitness adaptations, assuming you respect, rest, and recovery afterwards. Now, please keep in mind, when I say proper hard, I'm not talking about going out and killing yourself. You do want to finish high intensity sessions with a little bit left in the tank. But because you're fresher and you're training properly, those sessions, even with a little bit more left in the tank, you should be training at a much higher rate than if you were in a fatigued state. So what you just saw there was part 3 of a 3-part online video training, which goes for 28 minutes, which is 100% free. If you want to check it out, we'll provide a link below. But to round this one out, if you feel like you're experiencing some of those side effects I've described, maybe you are overtraining and you're unsure how to overcome it. This is not individual advice because everyone is different. So the only thing that I can share with you is from what we've seen within our member group at the RCA. And for some people, it takes a week to get over overtraining syndrome side effects. For some people, we've seen it can take up to 5 or 6 weeks. And the best thing that they can do is really do nothing. If anything, just make sure the heart rate stays low, like light zone 1 spins at the most. And get involved in recovery type activities such as walking in seawater, going for a massage, getting an infrared sauna, things like that. But ultimately, only you will know when you feel the fatigue lifting and you can then get back into it. But when you get back into it, you don't want to go straight back into intensity. You want to start off with some zone 2 aerobic training. Maybe spend 70 to 80% focus on zone 2 for the first 4, 6, 8, maybe even 10 or 12 weeks. And then when you're ready to get back into intense training, check out this video here, because in this video, I provide a day-by-day and week-by-week overview of how you should tackle your high intensity and incorporate rest, recovery, and zone 2 training to ensure you don't end up back in a fatigued state. I'll catch you in the next video.